doing? Are we defrosting a little bit, trying to stay warm? Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you also to Rachel for leading the lovely warm-up session this morning, and for the last panel, Finley and Dr. Lucy, and hosted by Inez from Diagonal Dance. And thanks all for being here today on our Stretch version 2, 2024. So without further ado, we're going to introduce the next panel, which is Fundraising Today, Dealing with Rejection, Going DIY and Finding New Approaches. And I am joined by, so I'm Michael, a producer, freelance producer. I work for artists and choreographers, supporting their work and their development. And part of that, big part of that role is also fundraising. So I'm here and also co-founded Stretch with Diagonal Dance. But I'm joined by Helen Brooker of Trusts and Foundations at Brown Bear Dance. And yeah, we're here to, I'll let Helen introduce a little bit more about your work and your background.
Sure. Hi everyone. I think I'm holding the microphone close enough to my face, but let me know if you can't hear me. I'm Helen Brooker. I'm head of Trusts and Foundations at Brown Bear, where I've been since last July, but I've also done a lot of fundraising jobs at other arts venues. So before that, I was at the Albany for a couple of years, and prior to that, I've been at the Barbican and the Southbank Centre. So lots of places across London, lots of venues. This is my first time at a touring company and focusing on one art form, which has been its own unique challenge, but really, really exciting. So yeah, just looking forward to our chat today.
Thank you, Helen, for being here. I just wanted to maybe open it out to the room a little bit. Obviously, we have various levels of experience and professions in the room, and occupations, and desires, and wishes. So maybe raise your hand if you want to, on who's kind of put a recent fundraising bid in, or ever applied for money, I guess for anything. Yeah, raise your hand. Yeah, a lot of hands up in the room. Okay. So also we're going to have a good session for a good amount of time at the end for questions. So think about anything that comes up, make a note of them, and yeah, we'll have enough time to ask anything that comes up, because I know this is a sort of always a hot topic of trying to find the money, trying to find the cash. So here we go. So let's start on maybe picking up from maybe also the mental health and wellbeing panel on the dealing with rejection. So we'll start with the hard stuff, the hard facts, the hard realities, and then we'll end hopefully a bit more with positive steps forward, as we like to. Yeah, so obviously the current state of play at the moment for fundraising in arts and culture is at, I would say, a historic low and problem. Yeah.
For sure. I think what everyone in the sector is saying, I mean, I've been around for 8 years in fundraising, but people are saying it's kind of worse than it's ever been in the last 10 plus years, which makes sense with all of the austerity. So yeah, I think it's not a hot take to say that it's really, really difficult at the moment, but I guess kind of in that I do find quite a lot of positivity, weirdly, that it's not just me getting lots of rejections, it's a sector-wide issue.
I think there's, for me, I guess, looking at it in the context, almost a perfect storm of many different external pressures and the global context that has created, a kind of a real, it's many different pressures on fundraising.
100%. I think we've seen basically so many trusts and foundations are closing their doors, not giving out funds anymore, simply because they are too overwhelmed by the amount of requests they're receiving, and that's due to a number of reasons: cost of living, cuts in council funding, all of these different things. We have the state that doesn't really prioritise funding the arts and culture in an adequate way, I think. So yeah, trusts are being completely overwhelmed with applications for funding, and many of them are just either closing their doors or not giving adequate feedback on applications, in some cases giving no feedback on applications. So yeah, it is, as you say, kind of perfect storm. And I do think those things, the longer they're allowed to carry on, only just get worse. There's no way that those things get better on their own.
Yeah. I think, I might take it to a question on sort of with the sort of the rejection rate that I sort of personally have had to deal with this year alone in the sort of last 6 to 8 months. It's like nothing I've ever faced before in the sort of 8 years of producing. So in terms of just picking up on the kind of dealing with rejection and trying to how can we maybe pivot that and turn it into a positive in any way we can and keep going, and if we want to keep going, and how can we become almost better bid writers through that as well?
So I think it can be difficult to find the positive sometimes. I've definitely found it extremely challenging. As you say, I'm the same. I've been receiving so many more rejections than I ever have. I've also been doing this for 8 years. In Trust Foundations fundraising, which is my kind of focus area, a kind of general rule of thumb used to be that you could expect maybe 10 to 20% success rate. That is completely out of the water now. I can't continue producing applications at this rate and getting so much rejection. It's not a good use of my time, it's not a good use of artists and producers' time that also contribute to those applications. So when you kind of compound that, I know a lot of you are freelancers and artists fundraising for your own work. I just can't imagine how difficult that is to kind of receive so much rejection, which I know is really rife at the moment. But I think things that I've found helpful have been mostly around talking to other people, realising it's not just me being a really bad fundraiser, which objectively, I know I'm a good fundraiser, I've done it before, I know that I can produce a really good bid, and I've written really great things. Like, not to be cocky, but I know I'm confident in what I do. It's just the environment at the moment, so I think talking to other people, sharing applications that you're writing with each other so you can see kind of what other people are doing. I think particularly when I was an early career fundraiser, that was a massive, massive help. Just even reading other applications, understanding the language and the way things are structured can be really helpful. And also, hopefully, if you're able to get feedback from a funder, and if they don't want to give feedback, maybe ask them or challenge them. I think that can be obviously really helpful then to how you figure out your next approach. And also, I guess just like, we care a lot about the things that we fundraise for, otherwise we wouldn't do it. But just reminding yourself that it's not the end of the world. Having a cup of tea, taking the weekend off, it's not, there will be other opportunities.
Yeah, I think it's also that trend. It's very strange when it's a Friday afternoon and you get that no. You have to carry it over the weekend. I think that's one of the coolest things that administrators of fundraisers can do, or whether it's the computer system that does it as well. Like, that is just a Friday at 5 o'clock, and it's a no. That's the why? Yeah, why? No, but yeah. So just let's like send that message back to anyone and say it's just bad practice. I think it's just really bad practice.
It's really bad practice, and I think there's a lot of things that we could call out or could get better at calling out as a sort of community of fundraisers and artists who fundraise for their own work. It's something that I have been talking a lot about in a sector group that I'm part of for other arts trusts fundraisers. How do we challenge when fundraisers come back and say, oh sorry, we've had too many applications to give you any feedback on yours? How can we kind of come together collectively and say, well actually this is really bad practice, because what you're asking now is that artists and charities spend more time writing applications that you probably don't want to fund, but we have no idea of knowing that. So yeah, that's something that I'm kind of talking a lot about at this other group. Hopefully something will come of it, but I'm hoping that we can put some pressure on people and kind of come up with some kind of best practice standards that funders can just get a bit better at following, because the power imbalance is so huge between these. I deal mostly with trusted foundations, but sometimes it's very wealthy individuals. I know lots of you will be looking at the Arts Council, which isn't my area of expertise, but I've done bits and bobs of it. But like that, they are the ones that have all the money. They are the gatekeepers, and we are kind of constantly trying to justify our existence and appeal for funding. So yeah, I think what I'm really hoping for over the next sort of year is more opportunities to kind of stand up and challenge them a little bit, at the same time as also towing the line and trying to get some money. So it's a kind of push-pull between those two things for me at the moment.
And feel free, obviously, at the to ask Helen around like the networks and those opportunities as well. I think with the sort of independent hat on, obviously, writing an application is quite often unpaid time at the start to even get the cash in the first place, right? So it's this sort of, again, this constant chicken or egg. And so what's sort of any advice maybe in terms of like justifying that and making the choice of saying, I'm going to invest some time now in this grant out of however many there might be, and choose it, and is it about being selective? Is it about researching a lot and even investing way more time in like thinking about, is this the right grant for this project? Is it likely, like what's the chances, etc. Any sort of advice on navigating that space in terms of trying to not give too much energy to something that then is a potential no.
I think it is about being more selective now. I think it's really, really easy to get caught in the idea that, it's a numbers game, I'm just going to put out as many as I can and something will stick. I've definitely been in that a lot before, because it feels gratifying getting things out of the door, and feeling like, okay, well, at least one of those has to come back because I've done so much. But as I've said, with the success rate at the moment, that's not what I'm seeing. I'm getting much more success from being a lot more targeted, doing a lot more research into specific guidelines, who they've already funded, the kind of work that they're interested in, and kind of pursuing funders that are most aligned with the specific projects that I'm raising money for. When I say I'm having more success, I'm still not having that much success, but it is marginally better. I think also with spending time on applications, I think it's good to not always start from zero. So something that I'm really trying to do at the moment is building up kind of neutral cases for support that are not aimed at a singular trust or foundation, around the projects that I'm fundraising for, making that sort of not only the case for why that project should happen, but the sort of impact that it will have on different groups of people, on yourself as an artist, and having that almost ready to go so that when opportunities do come up, you're not having to then take a whole week to write something when you've got most of it there available for you. Trying to be a bit more efficient and having stuff that I can copy paste a lot more of is what I'm trying to work towards that at the moment.
I think one thing that I've learned as an independent, working across also with professional fundraisers like Helen, is having like a master bid is actually really helpful. So almost having some text and copy that's really like defined. It's general because it's like your organisation overall, but you can copy and paste from it, and it's actually really significant kind of copy and text. So you're not having to always constantly rethink that and rejig that. So it's called like a master bid, as it were.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of where I want to be. The problem for me is because I am working at an organisation with so many different projects on, it's hard having a master bid for every single project, but that's kind of where I'm trying to work towards. But I would really encourage you, if you have a specific project that you're working on, trying to get to that point. I think, I'm calling it a case for support, you're calling it a master bid. They're the same thing, basically, but having that kind of central thing, even if it's 2 pages long, I don't know, like, any opportunity could come up and someone might want a 2-pager, and then you've just got something you can fling at them without having to do anything. So yeah, I think having that sort of in your arsenal and making sure that it includes good like impact data as well, if you have that. But yeah, I feel like we're going to talk about impact a bit later.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I think we've sort of shifted from dealing with the rejection and coping with that as best we can, and coming together to support each other through that. So maybe we jump into like the sort of going DIY and thinking about sharing some tips, sharing some success stories for successful bid writing, and like examples and just general tips that we can also write down and take away.
Successful tips for bid writing.
Yes.
I can give a few of these. So I spoke a bit earlier about just making sure you're really, really familiar with any guidelines that funders are putting out there. Looking at, there's a lot of different tools available to us on the internet for free, which is great, but it also can be a bit overwhelming because there's so much information about everything. So kind of digging around in the Charity Commission website, if you're looking at Trust and Foundations funders, they have to publish their accounts every year. So you can go into any registered charity, look at their accounts, see who they've given grants to or what kind of work they've given grants to. Obviously, if you're fundraising as a freelancer or an artist for yourself, it's not going to name individual people that they've given grants to, but often there will be a category for grants to individuals, so that's something to look out for and seeing kind of the level that they're of their giving in that area. For successful bid writing, I think it's making a really strong case for why your project is important. I think I've fallen into this trap before where I've been really, really close to a project and been so excited about it for my own reasons or for the reasons of the project team, and really written about it from that perspective. I think what's really important is to try and remove yourself from that headspace, which I know is really difficult if it's your own project that you're developing, and thinking about what does that funder really want. These funders exist to solve problems, really. So they want to fix something, and you need to show them how your project is going to fix that. So it can be really difficult to remove yourself, but I would really encourage you to try and zoom out, almost start your case for support with that issue or problem, whether it's having more representative audiences or cast members in a theatre show, or something that we've been doing a lot of is like dance for wellbeing at Romber. So like raising money for to solve healthcare challenges with movement and dance. So that would be kind of my leading part of the bid, even if it's not how we talk about it internally, even if it's only a side outcome of the project and the real outcome is something else. You really need to kind of pitch to a funder in their own language. I kind of think of it as the master bid or the case for support as all the information that exists on a project and all the possible impacts it can have. And then the actual application that I submit to a funder is like, it's all been filtered through what the funder needs, or because they have their own specific impacts that they need to report onto each other. That's how they make their decisions. So
I think that guides me to sort of thinking about understanding the guidelines or the guidance of a grant or a bid, and then looking at their desire for like evidence-based data or metrics, or like maybe we want to talk about a little bit about like the qualitative and quantitative and what we need to maybe start thinking about if you're on your journey to fundraising, like right from the start, about how you want to best create the evidence. Because one thing that I've learned, and I think it's changed in the last 4 years, it's the metrics and the data has become way more important, for whatever reason, for funders, than maybe the qualitative and the actual artwork itself, and the difference it will make to the community, and the audiences, and the participants, and the artists, and the whole ecology. So yeah, it's kind of then thinking, right, well, I've got to justify through data, but I don't necessarily have that data yet. So how can I start to sort of build that data? And if I don't have that data yet, then how can I still convince them? That's kind of an open question.
So yeah, ideally we're building this in from the beginning, we're building this in from when we set up our project. I do this a lot at the moment. I work with project teams really closely to make sure that we're doing everything we can from the minute that project is kind of an idea in someone's head, that we're thinking about how we can raise money for this, how we can evaluate it, and how we can prove that it's having the impact that we say it's going to have. So there's obviously a number of ways you can do this. You can mention quantitative and qualitative, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, quantitative is the data. So X many people came to this show, this many people performed in it, we paid this many people said that it improved their confidence or improved their well-being. It's all those kind of data tracking methods, basically, which you can collect from surveys, looking at ticketing, and also just looking at the kind of people that you're potentially reaching with your project. The qualitative, sorry, I find those words really difficult to say, especially so many times in a row. The qualitative data is really nice testimonials, case studies, photos, that kind of stuff that can't be put in numbers but can really tell the story of your project and what it's going to achieve. So some funders prefer one, some funders prefer the other. A lot of the time they're really, really hot on data, so kind of anything you can build in to the beginning of your project that allows you to collect data on people within, obviously, GDPR and making sure that you're doing that in a safe way, but collecting data on the people that you're working with is really, really key. But yeah, I think the qualitative stuff tells the story that those numbers can't, and I would really, really encourage, building in ways to collect that data.
I think also, for me, at the stage of working with an artist or choreographer and sort of developing the project, and then with the fundraising kind of hat on, I kind of I sort of look at like how can we also work a partnership into this project to lean on the support of others that are bigger than us, not bigger, but like to make us bigger than just us. And that's often also for me with the work, particularly if it's community and understanding the audiences, it's with a charity organisation, and it's about, I kind of tend to email or try and research and find the sort of data based on, for example, I'm doing an R&D next week with about a new play on single parenthood, and so I'm working with Gingerbread Charity to get that statistic on how percentage of single parent like raised in England, and like as specific as you can with that data to then create the argument for like, particularly also in the media, single parenthood used to be a lot more kind of out there, and now seems to be less, so about raising that profile of that particular artwork as well, so really wider than I guess the place narrative, so that I can kind of, the hooks I guess, isn't it, as well?
Definitely, because I think the data I was talking about just now was data that you would collect yourself, but I haven't mentioned what you're talking about, which is kind of having those sector statistics that are all over the place. People are publishing reports on so many different issues, so if your work is challenging one of those issues, there's probably a report or an evaluation impact report sitting somewhere on the internet that you can quote. I would really encourage looking at reporting from local councils and other kind of charities that are not necessarily in the arts space, but charities that are working to tackle different inequalities. There's also places, if you're working on anything that's particularly place-based, looking at things like the Index of Multiple Deprivation is a really good one for demonstrating need for specific community projects in different areas. So it's always really, really good to kind of use those kind of statistics to back up your argument for why your work is needed.
I think I'm just going to put it out there, but I do think contemporary dance as a sector isn't very good at the data side of stuff, and that's also coming from me. Like, yeah, it's kind of a turn off, and I'm not really that interested in it. But it does, where I see applications with it and without it, like it can also make a difference. And obviously, we are trying to become, I guess, better at that and collecting those data sets, because then we have, not to go to AI, of course, oh my gosh, but yeah, it can, for the case, to present the most convincing case, potentially with that more science sort of hat on, like,
Yeah, it's just something as simple as having a percentage of people that experience a certain issue that you're trying to solve with a brackets source is kind of enough while you're telling a story of why something is needed, as long as it's from a reputable place and probably not Wikipedia. I think it can be really challenging to find stuff sometimes, but I think AI is a really interesting one
yes.
to kind of lead on from thinking about data. It's we were talking about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
It's not something that I have done loads and loads of. It's something that I keep meaning to make the time to look into. But I think AI can be really helpful in, I think, finding those data sources as well, because I'm like, the computers, they have a lot of knowledge, so
for sure.
I think you could probably say, you could say a prompt like, I need data to back up these statements, and they could probably send stuff to you.
Yeah, scrape the internet.
I'm not talking about this with a lot of confidence.
My friends laugh at me because they called me out, and I was like, they were like, why are you saying like, please can I have they don't know, like, please, like, it's starting to become really, But that said, like the kind of trend on using ChatGPT or other AI tools, and
it's something that I've dabbled in a little bit. I've not done loads, and I would, again, it's something that I would like to spend a bit more time on. But there are resources that kind of have prompts ready-made for you to kind of input information about your project, how much money you need to raise, what the impact is going to be, a little bit about your project, and you can say, turn this into a case for support for me, and it'll come up with something. Obviously then you need to tweak it. You obviously would not send that straight out, but I think it can be really useful, especially when you're pressed for time. When, the point we were talking about earlier, how do you justify spending so much time writing a bid? If you are able to use that to get you to a first draft, I think that's amazing. I definitely want to use it more. So that one resource, it's called the Charity Excellence Framework. You're signed up to it?
I'm signed up to it, Charity Excellence Framework. Obviously, it's just a good resource to have, even as an independent artist, even though some you might not be able to go for. As trusted foundations, you have to be a registered charity for quite a few of them.
But he does,
there are some,
on, as well as doing the AI stuff, again, I'm not talking about that super confidently, the AI stuff sits on one bit of his website, but on the other bits there is a sort of funding database that has lists of funders. You can filter them by different categories, and one of those categories, I'm pretty sure, is whether you're an independent or an organisation, so that could be a really good way to find funders that would be open to giving grants to individual artists.
Definitely. I think, I guess it's about, as we learn together, to use AI in a way, and also just, I guess, reminding ourselves that maybe then other panel who are reviewing the applications also then maybe seeing the same generated content and material coming out from the same questions fed into it and all of that. So I think one producer, I'm going to do it like a call out, is Christina Poulton, and Christina runs like a course on using ChatGPT for Arts Council England project grant applications as a tool and a resource, and to help you guide through that. So I haven't actually been to one of the courses yet, but I'm aware of it and I'm super curious about it.
I'm so glad you brought this up. I really want to go.
Yeah, and how to kind of use it at its most effective. So Christina's done, I think, a lot of research into that area, which is also helping people as well, which is, you know, if it's there as well to use as an access to the funding and all of that. In fact, I was also speaking to one of our networks here earlier about also Arts Council England. If you have access needs, you can apply for an access support worker who will help you if you have barriers to accessing the grant writing application itself. For Arts Council, Grantium is notoriously bad, to use one word, and very, very difficult to navigate. And they're aware of that, so they've also put in this access pot for, so you can ask them if you have barriers to the grant writing process, that you can ask for funding to support that, to even get you to the bid and the application stage. So just to flag that and let you be aware of it, because yeah, it is there, and you have to write to the access team at Arts Council to start that process. So, where are we? Maybe talking about, also thinking about one of the main things is also funding timelines and deadlines, and that's a key kind of thing that may impact your project and the successful delivery of your project. And I think one thing I've learned is it's really key to kind of know how long the outcome will take. So Arts Council England, for example, is 6 to 8 weeks for under 30k and up to 12 weeks for over 30,000. So you really have to be aware of those like deadlines and putting it in enough leading time, and then thinking and considering enough delivery time for it as well. So yeah, just sort of, does any kind of tips on considering timelines and funding timelines?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's very easy to fall behind with this sometimes, but generally speaking, if they're not saying on their website when exactly they'll go back to you, I would kind of expect maybe 3 months, which is a bit of a long time, but it means that you have to plan in advance. Like we were talking about earlier, like when you're in delivery and you want to do something else afterwards, you also need to be applying for other stuff while you're delivering that first project. So it can be a bit tricky to kind of get your head around that. But once you're more kind of organised with, I like to do a kind of zoomed out view of the year and what the opportunities are coming up, to kind of make sure that I'm able to stay on top of it. Yeah, as long as I think it's really important to just build it into your original planning. And actually sometimes with funding applications, delivery doesn't have to be the very beginning of the funding. You can apply for a grant for a project and say that the first 3 months are going to be R&D, or even the first 1 month is just pulling together a project team and having a think about what we want to do together. So you don't have to feel like, okay, I need to do this application, and then if I get the funding, we have to go into delivery like the next day. You can build in that time at the beginning as well. So that, I think that kind of helps with the timelines as well, because you can say that you want to be really long term about it and plan for those long term deadlines, and then, but if the project depends on you getting that funding, it's really hard to just snap into delivery straight away.
Yeah, for sure. And also one tip for me is like, once you're also inside one successful project grant and you've got the funding, it's amazing, oh my gosh, yes. Thinking already at the start, that evaluation right at the start, that data right at the start, is like really, really important, because it will give you the evidence and the case and support your work for the future. And then, yeah, just trying to also put in the next bid already in that paid time that you have. So we're already catching up on that chicken and egg. So you're already being able to pay yourself for the time it takes to write the next one. And just already thinking about that, so you kind of feel, yeah, I guess a bit more satisfied, like actually, yeah, I'm not just out there, I'm getting paid for the work, and inside of this, I'm going to write the next one whilst being paid. So that's one of the major kind of, for me, changes in terms of like getting the flow and that kind of consistency of kind of pace. And I would also say, like, the more, although, yeah, it's like being selective is really important. Like, I found, like, the more grants that you write, the more applications that you write, the better that you will become. A bit like our friends in the robot world and the chat people, chat AI. You're just gonna get better at it, and it's like taking on that feedback and sort of, yeah, keep writing, keep rewriting it, keep revisiting it and going, oh my gosh. And sometimes I read applications and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I totally missed out this whole, like, yeah, juicy, beautiful bit. Like, it just didn't speak through, it just didn't come through. Like, and that's maybe a few months later, and I'm like, oh yeah, if only, or, you know. And so constantly, like, yeah, revisiting and like trying to prioritize the best case in like 1,000 characters. Like, why on earth did we also create a world where we have to like talk about everything and solve the world's problems through art and culture and write 500 words? In 500 words, how are you going to do that? Like, we need to also discuss that, and also, yeah. Anyway, I'm on a way. Let's come back. So I reckon we want to maybe get in a little bit, like two minutes on like other new approaches, models, thinking like outside of like the status quo, the usual like funding ways, and just kind of like, yeah, hearing from any other ideas and getting creative with fundraising, and yeah, whether that's like half marathons, I don't know. Yeah.
I'm not doing half marathons. I think we spoke a bit about crowdfunding before, didn't we?
Crowdfunding, yes.
Has anyone ever done crowdfunding for a project that they've done?
Definitely, yes.
3 people, okay. I've done bits and bobs of crowdfunding with different, well, kind of crowdfunding style campaigns with different organisations. I think that's kind of the one people often think of as the kind of alternative to seeking grants for their work. So I think that can be a really, really good option for people, but you just have to be very prepared for the amount of work it takes to put in, because it's not... Lots of people are crowdfunding all the time for all different things, so I think you just have to be, again, kind of going back to the time management thing, almost blocking that time out as you kind of doing marketing for your project and putting the word out there, starting small if it's your first one. And ideally, if you have the network, or you have someone that might consider giving you a first, slightly larger gift, that often really helps to kick things off. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think, are we thinking also around, like, it's maybe more important now than ever to sort of also lean on each other and offer and give more, and whether that's, yes, we love the financial, but the support in kind, but also the level of partnership and pooling of resources. So, for example, as an independent artist, you might not be a registered charity, and your organisation isn't, or even a CIC, community interest company charity. So that limits your availability to go for pots, but there's nothing to say that you can't say, hey, amazing Rambert, who's a registered charity, right? Yeah. So, hey Rambert, I've got this project in mind. You're a registered charity. You can go for all of these pots that I can't go for. Can we work together? And can you maybe put the bid in as a registered charity and support our work as a partnership? And I think that's one way to also, yeah, COVID. I think looking at like potentially also the British Council grants and schemes there for international work and international touring. Obviously the British Council is about that exchange, so it's already embedded in their grant writing process that you have to have those sort of equal partnerships, and so you can, that's just a way to sort of think about, yeah, we're stronger together in this bid. And I think you were saying to me last week around like the funders, you're finding funders are particularly in the same area, if there's two, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I think what we're hearing a lot from funders, some of the funders that have deigned to give me feedback on negative applications have, obviously, if they're funding too much other stuff in the same area that you're working in, they, like the feedback I've received is kind of, well, why haven't you just teamed up with Lewisham Youth Theatre and worked together on this project? And for many reasons, we didn't do that. But there is kind of, I think there's something in this idea of working together. Like I was saying earlier, funders are looking to solve a problem. So if there's someone else that they perceive to be similar to you, a project that they perceive to be similar to your project, that already seems to be addressing that problem. Some funders will just turn around and think, oh, they should be doing it together. That would be more efficient, they'd reach more people, it would have more of an impact to solve that problem. So I think this idea of partnership working, pooling resources, joining together and kind of maximising your impact is a good way to kind of get on a funder's side.
Again, it would obviously takes a lot of communication and partnership development and building that trust as well, obviously between the partnership to be there.
Definitely, but I think a lot of organisations are really open to it. I've been part of partnership bids that have come from an external person suggesting something to us. They haven't always worked, but sometimes they do, and it's really amazing.
So that's also one direction I'm going to go into a little bit more as well, with the artists and choreographers that I sort of work with. So leaning on those charities to get into pockets of cash that you are potentially limited to as an independent. I wonder if we want to go and open the room up for any burning questions or icy cold questions. Oh, we're defrosting.
I have a question around evaluation. And what would you say are the best questions to ask yourself to make the best evaluation throughout the project?
So I think it kind of comes down to the central question of why you're doing the project. And that can be something as simple as, I'm an artist and I want to develop my creative practice, develop my career and kind of build a certain new skill or something. So the questions that you would sort of ask yourself would be around kind of, say the project was a year long, looking at different points of the year, how much more confident do you feel in this skill that you might want to develop more of, how many more connections have you made with other people doing a similar thing. So it's kind of, I feel like you can reduce most funding applications to kind of one line. Not easily, I'm not saying that's an easy task, but I think you can kind of reduce a lot of these funding applications to one singular cause and main reason why you're doing it, and that should be kind of underlying all of the questions you're asking yourself in your evaluation, because you're trying to demonstrate how you've achieved that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would sort of maybe add to that, like, just sort of doing the almost, I guess, personal work in terms of understanding your own values or the values of the project then, I guess. And just sort of listing like what are the key values here that I want to get.
And how to demonstrate success, because sometimes the evaluation questions can feel very, like the central question of your project might feel really nebulous and hard to explain in data. So kind of coming up with a sort of metric at the beginning of a project and thinking, okay, if I've achieved these 5 things, that will be proof that I've had impact in that area. So yeah, just I think defining things at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think understanding of like community and audience and the participants and the impact that it will make on a human, personal level there as well, I guess.
Definitely, not neglecting that, the really nice storytelling that evaluation can be. I think that's ultimately what we're doing when we're fundraising, is we're telling stories about our projects and why they're important. So as important as it is to collect that data and have numbers to back up what you're saying, not neglecting the personal story. If you're fundraising for your own creative practice, make sure that you're writing down kind of testimonies, even if it's just yourself, of where you're at the beginning, middle and end. I think that would be a really nice way of kind of demonstrating a journey of a project for you as an artist.
Yeah, yeah. Any more questions? Yes, go for it. At the front, and then we'll go. Thank you. Yeah.
So polite.
So I work with Helen at Wonder, and I just wanted to ask you how much you think networking around the people who are in charge of the trust, like who is actually giving the money, and how much work do you put into that? Because I know that we have talked about it a little bit, and it feels quite important to get to know who's actually in charge of the money.
Yes, I would say it's really important. It's also very challenging sometimes, because sometimes they make it very difficult. Sometimes they absolutely do not want to be contacted, and I've had funding from funders that just never come to anything, will send us a check once a year, don't want to talk to us. I don't know if they've ever even seen us, but some of them need a lot more kind of schmoozing. I guess for me, being attached to an organisation is really helpful, because I wouldn't say schmoozing philanthropists and rich people is like my favourite thing in the world to do, but being attached to an organisation means I can kind of do that via our chief executive, our artistic director, our chair. As an independent artist, I think it goes back to that kind of collaborative point we were making earlier. If you're able to kind of do partnership working with organisations that have capacity to do that kind of networking, that's really nice to join in on. I also would really recommend, I feel like everything is coming back to just talking to each other, but talking to other people, building good networks and joining networks that already exist. I personally know I used to work at the Albany, and they have a really, really good supportive network for fundraisers in Lewisham. I used to do fundraising support on that network, so but it's a really, really good programme, and it's supporting people to fundraise in the borough, working on their own creative projects, and helping them to kind of build those networks themselves, so that there is support out there. It can feel very daunting as an independent, but yeah, I would say it is important to do if you can.
We'll just go to that and then to So one and then two. Thank you. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, kind of going, I don't think you talked about it, in fact, quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just staying on that, because I'm in a position now where I'm involved with an already existing, like as a theater company in the sort of administrative space, but also I'm an independent artist myself. And so I can see how impact and like data is so helpful with the applications we're doing in that sector. But obviously as an independent, it's sort of like, well, number one, I want to make art for awareness, question mark. How then can I measure that impact? You know, yes, reach the community, okay. You know, especially if we're going into things like free and accessibility for people to, you know, view the arts, then how am I able to even quantify qualitative or not, you know, kind of thing. Impact from smaller sort of like, I haven't even done this project yet.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to tell you what the impact could or couldn't be.
Yeah.
But I do understand from a larger perspective why it's so beneficial. So yeah, I don't know what the question is in there, but
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've fundraised for a project with a theatre maker who was an associate artist at the Albany. So this was a couple of years ago, and her project was to raise awareness of invisible illness. It was not something I'd ever fundraised for before. It wasn't something that the Albany had fundraised for before. So in kind of making that case at the beginning, it was really about looking for that sort of broader data that exists in the charity sector, where people are publishing, you know, evaluation reports on how taboo invisible illness is, and the kind of stigma around it, the percentages of people that live with an invisible illness. I shockingly cannot remember that now, but it was burned onto my mind for such a long time. But it's a huge proportion of the population that we wouldn't necessarily know about. So kind of arming yourself with facts and figures that already exist without you having to do all of that work can really demonstrate this is a massive issue that needs more awareness raised around it. And then also, because I agree with you, like it's so difficult to give data when you haven't done the project yet. It's like so chicken and egg. But I think with kind of looking at your audiences and who you're looking to reach, even if you're able to do some very small initial data gathering on people's awareness of that project, not the project, sorry, people's awareness of that issue, you then have some really good baseline data. You can say, you know that this is an issue that we need to raise awareness of. I also know that in the communities I'm trying to reach, there is very little awareness of this issue. So I want to change that. You can I know you said that you work with another organisation as well. I don't know if it's in a similar area to your project, but
Different.
okay.
They are interested in social justice, very specific issues, and production their own crime is about like cameras and crime.
Sure.
But those statistics and like that community is so specific.
Yeah.
And the things that I'm interested in independently are within that sort of world, but maybe not necessarily have such a very like specific, target audience, if you will. Or maybe it's that I don't even know quite what that is. So then again, going back to chicken and egg, it's like, so then do I have to do a whole audience development before I even
Right. If I look at like the journey of Stretch, for example, we were already aware like last year that we wanted it to be also from the community, the topics that are featured in the day, like removing that kind of gatekeeper lens on the day. So we actually put in a little bit of our time to like just send out some surveys to our friends and community across the dance places, and then what came back fed into that our very first application, which was successful like a year ago, which fed into that narrative. I do think also like as artists, choreographers, makers, dreamers, everything, we are incredible storytellers at our core, and I think it's about at the start maybe just amplifying your voice, and sort of if you can mention a little bit of data in that, but like just giving those testimonials, the personal, the persona, the charisma, and like let that maybe shine through and lift off the page. And so putting your sort of self in the panelist's shoes and always go like, what are they seeing, what are they reading, and does this really share the best, truest, honest articulation of my project, of my dream, our work, whatever that may be. Yeah.
Definitely. I think also with kind of going back to data but not wanting to make you feel like data is the most important thing, because it's not, it's storytelling, as you said. I think that with oh my gosh, I was completely forgotten my point.
Oh, data on, like
Completely gone
monitoring.
off.
That's fine, don't worry. We can go to Pierre's question. Yeah, no worries.
We have time, sorry,
Oh.
for a final question.
Okay. Yes.
And then
Thank
we
you.
need to
Okay.
move on.
Thank you, Inez.
For a final question.
Yes, we love that. Thank you, Inez. Pierre.
I mean, I guess for me, it's just more the idea that obviously fundraising is very different from the perspective and who you're fundraising for. And like, if you're an independent artist, it's very different. Like, if you're a massive organization, or if you're an arts organization or a community organization. I guess for me, one of the questions simply search engines. I guess where do you know where the money is from? Like, where can you find money? Because for independent artists, it's quite small. I mean, like Arts Council, okay, especially in the arts. But then beyond that, it's very little out there. I mean, then this we talked about obviously crowdfundings and things like this, and then. But like, I guess what kind of search engines do you use? And
Sure. So I am very lucky because I fundraise at an organisation where we pay for a membership to a resource called Funds Online, which is really helpful. I think they do have cheaper packages if you are an individual, and also I know a lot of people that pool together. Again, going back to every single question is answered by just group up with each other and do something. I know a lot of people that pool together and pay for a membership to this resource. It is very good. It allows you to filter by different kinds of project. It might be worth doing, I think they might do free trials, so then you can kind of test it before committing to it. The Charity Excellence Framework that I spoke about earlier is completely free, and that, I think that's a really, really brilliant starting point because that also allows you to filter. And then the Charity Commission, it's unwieldy, but it is really good. That also allows you to filter by types of project, whether they will fund individuals, and also just being part of the kind of networks that I mentioned earlier. So in Lewisham, there's a network chaired by the Albany. In Lambeth, the council runs, I think it's called Elevate, I should definitely know this, but I'm on their mailing list and they are always sharing opportunities, not just for organisations. It's actually very rarely relevant to me. They're all for individuals. So I think, yeah, just kind of linking up with what's going on in your local area, because people are very willing to share.
I also think potentially as an independent, looking at maybe joining a board of trustees to expand your network in a level of obviously it's a big responsibility and it's a voluntary position, so it's not for everyone, totally respects that, but just thinking about that already, it might open up into different, how is that organisation fundraising and maintaining and kind of keeping afloat in the stormy weather. Maybe arts, philanthropy and fundraising, also as a resource and tool. Also, Producers Gathering have an amazing resource of I guess, templates to use. And also we wanted to name check White Pube, which sits in more the visual arts sector, but it's really applicable because they have an open resource of people submitting their redacted, successful and unsuccessful arts council applications on various scales. Yeah, totally. So, I want to also introduce, there's a wall outside with, on the back of a door, which is the dance space, with brown paper on it. And that throughout the day, you're welcome to pick up a post-it or a pen and write down any sort of resources, links, books, recommendations, anything that you guys have all come across in your practice, or any questions for us to think about in the future, and just sort of share, just feel free to scribe down anything on that brown paper that we can also take away from today as a community and as a collective, as we need that more than ever before. So thank you, Helen, thank you everybody. We're around for the rest of the day. We'll be bouncing straight into Sarah's front of us. Artist and Leadership Mentorship session, which I'm very, very excited about, coming up very soon, and then we'll have lunch. So thank you everyone. Cheers! Bye!